actually put across is, what is personal finance according to you?
According to me, it's like a life skill. It's if you master personal finance.
What is one money habit, right, that has actually changed?
I used to spend first, and with the remaining, I used to invest, which was the wrong thing to do.
What is the right age to start?
There is a saying, the best time to start planning for your retirement is from the very first.
Youngsters investing in stock markets, mutual funds, or any type of investment, is it on the time?
Have been pumping in money and foreign institutional investors have been pulling out because they find that the value is elsewhere.
So, if you had to actually start off with 0 rupees in your hand,
Saving for a rainy day, an emergency fund, you can't invest all your money.
hi, Mr. Sandeep.
Hi, Aishwarya.
A very good day to you. Thank you
you.
so much for joining us in Go Make a Difference.
Thank you for
And
having me.
thank you. It's our pleasure here. So we all know that you're a personal finance expert, right? So we would want to throw a little bit of light to our audience about personal finance, that being the thing in this generation, right? Savings, spending is something that people are actually murmuring around, and there's a lot of commotion about it. What should be done? So I think let us just get into some candid talk about personal finance and money and what to do, how to do, when to do, and where to do.
Of course.
Right. So to start off with, the first question that I want to actually put across is, what is personal finance according to you?
According to me, it's like a life skill. It's if you master personal finance, or at least attempt to master it, then you're really sorted. And it's something that cannot be overlooked or underestimated. Every one of us, irrespective of our current earnings or our current financial situations, need to understand the nuances of personal finance. We quite often focus on our physical health, but your financial health is also equally important or very important. So I think personal finance is something that everyone should embody, and it's not a complicated business. It can be simplified, and that's the idea of my practice as well. That's something that you just cannot ignore.
What is one money habit, right, that has actually changed your life, given that spark, eureka moment for you?
Yes, so initially when I started earning, and when I worked in banks, to be honest, the money was pretty good. I was very excited with the sudden influx of income that I started spending very generously and did not focus too much on saving up and investing for the future. So that happens with many youngsters, right? So when they start earning, they have a sense of independence, financial independence, and they buy the costly phones, the bikes, or the cars. And I did that as well. And then when I learned a little bit about the the need or the benefits of investing for the long term, I used to spend first, and with the remaining, I used to invest, which was the wrong thing to do. Great, leaders in the financial space, like Warren Buffett, they advise that you first invest, okay, a certain amount of your income, and then you spend from the rest. So that is something I started inculcating my own spending habits. Out of my income, I set aside a particular percentage for long-term investment, and then started spending from the remaining. And that's when you can control your spending, as well as plant the seeds for a good financial future.
Okay. At what age did you actually get this thought?
I regret that it happened a little late because I didn't have the kind of knowledge that I should have ideally had when I graduated from college. And probably towards the end, late 20s, is when I started knowing about all this, reading more. And of course, with the advent of social media and internet getting more cheap and accessible, people we started watching more YouTube videos, and you learn more. So I wish I could have started earlier, but somewhere in the late 20s, I think I lost a few precious years of investment horizon.
The golden compounding effect.
Yes, absolutely. I want to obviously, as we progress in this discussion, want to talk about how starting early is so crucial.
What is the right age to start?
There is a saying, the best time to start planning for your retirement is from your very first salary. Most of us, we do not plan for a retirement thinking that it's very far away. It technically is very far away, but due to the power of compounding, when you start investing early, initially the graph is a little flat, but due to the power of compounding, after some time, say 5 years, 10 years, the graph really tends to take off almost like vertically. So if you start early, you can start with a smaller investment and keep adding on, and then it keeps adding up, and by the time you go to your retirement age, whatever that age would be, and nowadays people are wanting to retire early as well, so by then you attain financial freedom, independence, where you decide whether you want to work or not. Working there at that age would not be an obligation, but more of a choice. So I think right from your very first salary is when you should start planning for your not just your immediate future, but also for retirement.
So when you say that money in this generation is huge, like you had told, right? So how do you think equally this generation is also into savings? It is just not about spending, but they know where to invest. At least one bit of the crowd knows how to invest, where to invest, maybe not from the first salary, but at least 1 or 2 years down the lane. So is it actually on the high? Is it increasing? The youngsters investing in stock markets, mutual funds, or any type of investment, is it on the high?
Definitely on the high. Last few years, during COVID, for example, the number of demat accounts there was a record number of new demat accounts that were opened during that time, because COVID did some good to us as well, indirectly, and many people started understanding the importance of being insured, having savings during difficult times. So and obviously with all the the content that's available on the internet, there are many youngsters who are starting early. I know my nephew himself, who just started working at the age of 21, invests at least 30% of his salaries in equities, and he's been increasing, and that's because probably he's my nephew, and I keep
There's a
advising
good
him.
amount of free financial advice that is
Oh
going
yeah,
through.
absolutely, absolutely. As you know, the markets have been correcting in the last few weeks because Indian retail investors have been pumping in money, and foreign institutional investors have been pulling out because they find better revenues elsewhere. But it did go to those highs because Indian retail investors were pumping in more and more money, believing in the long-term potential of the stock markets. Yes, it's a very encouraging sign that more individuals, but still we are a very under-penetrated market for mutual funds, for example. I think just about 3 or 4% of the earning population invests in mutual funds. There is huge potential, and there are youngsters who still don't do anything. So
Right, yeah. So this is something for the one who does something and who is not doing something as well, isn't it?
yeah.
So if you had to actually start off with 0 rupees in your hand, what would you do and how will you build your wealth in 5 years?
Sure. So I always tell my viewers on YouTube as well as my clients that wealth is not just making money. Okay, there are three aspects to financial planning. One is saving for a rainy day, an exigency fund. You can't invest all your money in market linked investments, and then if there's a market correction, there's 10%, 20% decline, and then you will be in trouble when you really want to dip your hands into those funds. So saving is also equally important. When I say saving, it could be some funds that easily accessible and has not diminished in value, like say your fixed deposit or saving account. How much we should have? Ideally, at least 3 months of your expenses. Some experts say 6 months, but case to case basis, if you back yourself, let's say you're laid off by your company, and if you back yourself that you would find another job within 3 months, then 3 months of exigency fund is sufficient. But if you're in a job which is a little shaky, and you feel that maybe it may take me 6 months to get back into employment, then yes, it's better to have. So saving for a rainy day is important. So I would obviously, if I have to start from scratch, I would build up my exigency fund. Then no matter how much money you make, you need to also cover your bases. You need to have health insurance and term life insurance, as well as your motor insurance and everything, because even if you have the money to pay for your medical expenses, let's say unfortunately you were to have suffer a fall or meet with an accident, and you're admitted, and the bill is about 2 or 3 lakhs. Even if you have that in your emergency fund, why would you want to pay from your own pocket, right? You Insurance is basically transferring the risk to another company, and that is why we pay a premium. The premium is like, to draw an analogy, uh, it's like paying the salary for a security guard for your building or your apartment. So the security guard prevents or attempts to prevent theft and robbery or burglary, and at the end of a year, if there is no theft or burglary, you wouldn't go back and take back the salary saying there was no incident. So similarly, many people feel psychological problem actually. I mean, it's a mental thing that uh, if nothing happens, I mean, I don't make a claim. It's a waste of a
Right.
investment or an expenditure. No, you're paying for that security and you're transferring that risk. And there have been many people who have benefited from that insurance. And there are people who didn't have health insurance and couldn't pay for treatment, and some people had to settle for some other form of treatment, and they have even passed away. I know a couple of instances when they didn't have enough money to get good treatment, and they had to run from pillar to post, and some people end up selling all their jewelry, their property and everything. Similarly with term life insurance, if you're an earning member, you cannot assume that nothing untoward is going to happen.
Right.
So life is uncertain. Anything can happen to anyone, at any point of time. So I would also cover my bases by getting sufficient health insurance, term life insurance, and never ever consider it like an unwanted expense that I wouldn't get anything back if nothing happened to me. And I wouldn't also want to assume that nothing would not happen to me, or nothing wouldn't happen to me. So these two things, and then slowly setting aside money for long-term investments. So these three things: savings, insuring myself against uncertainties, and then starting off with whatever. If I'm earning 10,000 rupees, I would set aside at least 3,000 rupees for, depending on my age. And obviously, if the older you grow, your risk appetite will reduce. So the younger you are, the more you can set aside for equity linked investments like stocks or mutual funds.
When we talk about investment, right, the first thing that comes to our mind is mutual funds or equities. So predominantly everybody thinks that's very easy. Predominantly they invest only in those two forms, right, as far as I know. What are the avenues where the youngsters can actually start investing to see a long term growth?
So there are quite a few investment avenues. People dabble in futures and options trading. They buy real estate, and some invest in gold ETFs. And there is another exciting investment instrument called REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust, where you don't really buy real estate, but you invest in a fund that invests in real estate. But stocks, shares of companies, and mutual funds are very popular because they are fairly simple. They're regulated by SEBI, and the SEBI is always having an eye on companies who, if there is some sort of um, trading practice that is not normal, then they step in and bring in some controls. So, and when you go to a mutual fund, right? So, a mutual fund is basically a company that sets up this asset management company. There's a sponsor, they set up this asset management company, and they appoint these fund managers who are senior, experienced, and qualified investment professionals, and they manage your funds. So there will be hundreds and thousands of people pulling in money. They collect the money and they invest either in shares or in government securities or in money market instruments and different instruments based on the mutual funds theme and objective. And what do they get in return? They charge a fund management charge, or it's also called as an expense ratio, which is in the range of 1 to 2% depending on the scheme. So now, as an individual who has, say, someone's working in IT or healthcare and they do not have the time or the knowledge or the intention to constantly monitor the markets, do a fundamental analysis of the company, or you do technical analysis of how the stocks have moved over the last few years. If you're an individual who's having a different career, who does not have the time or the knowledge or the intention to do this on a daily basis, then it's better you let an expert do that for you. And that expert is the fund manager. So if you were to just put in money using your own thing like a gamble and then end up losing money, or if you trust a fund manager to do that for you and then they charge that 2%, if the fund manager delivers 15% return and you're paying 1 or 2% of that, I think it's a fair bargain. So that is why I'm pretty gung-ho and enthusiastic about mutual funds. And if I mean stocks, direct investments obviously can return a better return on investment for you. I personally myself, I invest in mutual funds majorly, but I invest also in stocks of some very valuable companies, big companies that have a very good historic performance record. So you can do both of that, and I do not dabble into futures, options, and a whole lot of other risky avenues.
So, for the youngsters, right, maybe a tip, or maybe a lot of people will be inquisitive about this: intraday trading or long term trading?
Long-term trading, absolutely, because in intraday you need to be, on the money, right? So you have to uh, uh, be watching it, and you need to know. Sometimes it can just go up, sometimes you lose money, and then if you are in that field, if you have studied that, if you have the time and you have the knowledge and the knack, well, you can make a lot of money in intraday, and I know people who do that. But if you believe in value investing, plant the seeds today, watch it grow, then long term is the way to go. Invest and forget about it, leave it for a few years, and equities have always historically delivered best returns compared to even real estate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we believe that real estate is amazing, Okay. Parents say, oh, he, bought that land for 20 lakhs. Today it's going for 1
Yes.
crore after 25 years. Well, uh, when you talk about real estate, we always talk absolute values, right? You bought for 50 lakh. Today that apartment is selling for 1 crore. You bought that plot of land for 2 lakhs and then you sold it for 50 lakhs. We always talk absolute values. But when you calculate the compounded annual growth rate, right, which when you say FD, if you go to a bank and say, what's the fixed deposit rate. They don't say invest 1 lakh and after 5 years take 2 lakhs. They always say percentage, 7%, 6%. How much does my saving account get? How much does mutual? So you talk percentages, which is annual compounded growth rate. So if you compare real estate, sometimes maybe in some areas where the appreciation has really skyrocketed all of a sudden, you may get about 10-12%, but it usually is in the range of 5-6%. And rental yields are even lower, you know. So when you say rental yield, I remember my sister was living in an apartment which she wanted to buy, but then she decided to rent it. She was paying a rent of 16,000 back then, and the apartment was about costed up bare without the interior was costing about 52 lakhs. With interior and registration and everything was about costing about 60 lakhs. And now what was the landlord getting? 16,000 into 12. So that's just about 2 to 3% of rental yields. So you and if you add the appreciation, is again it's about 4-5% per year. So real estate is not something that can give you more. It's also the liquidity, right? So you can't dispose real estate whenever you want.
Right.
You need to find the right buyer, and then there is also a question of litigation when you buy. You know, so you need to be extremely careful. I remember recently my sister again wanted to buy an apartment, and she went and saw a flat, and everything that the builder was saying was all very rosy, and you know, so but when you go to the lawyer, he found so many loopholes. And then first when you take the papers, they were like yeah, we would give whatever paper your lawyer needs, everything is clear. But when the lawyer started asking for documents, and then they started turning hostile. No, we can't give this, we can't give that. If you want to buy, you buy, otherwise you leave, and all sorts of language. So litigation problems is plenty in real estate. Then liquidity is another problem. You can't sell immediately. If you want a good price, you have to wait, you have to be a good hard bargainer. And if you compare the annual growth rates, it doesn't beat equities.
Real estate, the most needed topic for the hour, right? So even now in I'm not sure about North Indian or whatever, the South Indian traditional homes, get a house first. That is what is there. Oh, you're getting married, does the boy have a own house or not? Where is the house? What is the, how much has he bought that house for? Like how you said previously, no, I got a house for 50 lakhs and the value of the house is 1 crore. So we can judge the boy that telling that he has a property worth 1 crore. So that is something that will, I think it will still continue for a couple of generations, right? Maybe there's a slight, change in mindset for the current generation. So is it really worth to invest so much of money? You know, in fact, if, for example, if one employee of any man, any common man is earning a lakh per month, his EMI is 65,000 to 70,000 per month. And with 30,000, he has to run his family. The man or the woman, whoever is the breadwinner of the family. What are your thoughts about it? Because that is something that everybody is confused about and still thinks that I should have a house which you really don't own for the term period of loan that you take, right? 25, 30 years. So what are your thoughts on that?
So my opinions are a bit unpopular. Okay, we've had these debates with, I've had these debates with friends, with relatives. Obviously, my parents' generation believed that you have to have a roof above your head, no matter what you don't have in life. You need to have a roof above your head. See, everyone would love to own a house, call something their own, come back. But times have kind of changed now. Our parents' generation, they were in the same organization. My mother worked in the same organization for 40 years, the same office. Same with my father. They never had to move anywhere, and for them it did make sense, stability. But today's generation, with hybrid working and shifting companies and locations, many are preferring to stay in rented accommodation. Loan free is not great idea.
Okay.
Is the financial aspect. So if you were to uh, buy real estate, if I were to buy, it would be an independent house or a plot of land, okay, where I would probably build my retirement home and live there. So real estate is not a bad idea if it is for your own dwelling, right? So if you are certain that this is the house I'm going to live for the like foreseeable future, 20 years, 30 years, then you build a house or buy a villa or something on land, because land is anyway always, even if it doesn't appreciate too much, it will still appreciate. It's not a market linked thing, although there is demand and supply, but traditionally they never go down in value, at least in India. So one unit for your own dwelling, the second one becomes meaningless. Youngsters who don't want to own a car anymore, they want to depend on subscription plans or maybe use cabs all the time. It is changing, but having said that, everything cannot be just about monetary aspects. Also, having own house and designing it the way you want
It's a
gives
very
you,
emotional
yes,
connect for a majority of
a lot of people. And
people.
personally, I feel having one own house for our own dwelling uh, for the long term is a great idea, and buying a second or a third flat really is not financial, doesn't make financial sense. You might as well invest that in a mix of equities and fixed income products as well.
Most unconventional financial advice that you've given someone and that has actually worked?
The advice that some of them have taken from me and has worked for them is that stay in debt. Okay.
Okay.
When I say stay in debt, I know there would be eyebrows that are raised, and what is this guy saying? A home loan, for example, comes at a rate of, say, now it's prevailing at around 8%, 8.5. It goes down to 7, 7.5. There's something called as a flat rate. So when they say 8%, it is actually, since the loan is based on the reducing balance method, so the interest that you pay keeps reducing based on the outstanding throughout the loan tenure. So if you take a 20-year home loan at 8%, you the interest that you're paying averages out to only about 5.5% per year. Okay, they can go to any online calculator. There's a website called emicalculator.net. So you just have to enter the loan amount, the tenure, and the rate, and then it calculates the EMI, and it tells you something called flat rate. Now, flat rate is the actual rate per year that you are uh, spending for that, which is about 5% or so, 5.5%. Now, when you're getting a home loan, you're investing in a plot of land or building a house or owning a physical asset. Uh, Even if you have the money, say you have sold something you've inherited or whatever, you have the money, it's good to let the loan continue, okay? Because you're only paying 5% there. Use that money and invest elsewhere, right? Say in a mutual fund, a decent mutual fund for 5 years, 10 years will give you at least 12% per year. Even a fixed deposit would give you 7, 8% per year. Some of the newer banks offer up to 8% and so on. So that is what banks themselves do, right? They borrow money at lower price from us by giving us 3 or 4% for a saving account, 0% for our current accounts, 7 or 8% for our FDs. They use that money to lend to businesses and individuals at higher rates. Business like personal loans at 12%, 14%, car loans at 10, 11, business loans at higher rates, and the margin, the spread is their income. So as individuals also we could do that. You have a home loan, you're paying 5% to the bank, flat rate. You invest the rest in equities, and then if you do the calculation for 20 years, the difference is alarming. Let's say you buy a flat for 50 lakh and you're paying an EMI, an interest of around 8%. If you look at the entire 20 years, you'll end up repaying about 1.25, 1.3 crores, including the interest and everything. But if you invest that money in mutual funds or equities or wherever, you will end up earning 2 or 3 crores at the end of that 20 period. So even if you have the money, don't repay. And then of course there's the income tax benefit as well. Obviously now the government is trying to push more people towards the new regime, but in the old regime you have income tax benefits for home loan repayments. That's two parts. The principal would be in the ATC and the interest under section 24. So you get income tax benefits, which again is reducing your taxable tax liability. Money saved is money earned.
Right.
So in both ways, it's fantastic. So people who said, Sandy, I wanted to close in 10 years, I was like, Array, you have eligibility of 20 years, keep it running. The excess money, you see, once EMI is an equated monthly installment. So if you're paying a 20,000 EMI, it will remain the same through the entire 20 years, unless you want to, change it. But your incomes will grow over the year. You won't be earning the same salary for the next 20 years.
Right.
So at one time, you will have sufficient money. We feel like, why have this burden of repaying? Let me close it. But if you keep this, and then again, it's easy to say, right? You have extra money. You may want to, okay, I have a few lakhs left. Let me buy this. Let me, buy a new car which I don't need, or let me spend on some extravagances. Instead, if you sincerely invest that money, that extra money that you have, then 15 years, 20 years later, you will see that you spent a paltry amount. Not paltry, but you spent a small amount, but you've actually earned far more than that. And the other reason why you would want to keep is it builds a good credit score, right?
Right.
When you have a loan that is backed by a security, your house itself is a security, and you're repaying it on time, it also helps your credit history. And in future, when you want a loan for some other purpose, having a healthy CIBIL score would get you better rates and easier loans as well.
That's a very interesting advice, I would say. So, what is CIBIL score and how important is it?
Oh, that's CIBIL score is not only important for getting loans, but also for job prospects as well. There are companies who ask you to download your CIBIL score and share it with them. If it is not healthy, if it is below a certain score, then you won't even get offered the job, because they know if you if you cannot keep your credit history proper, how would you replicate how would you perform in your job? So that's important, having a good credit history. uh, some people, they feel that, okay, they may have a credit card due of 2 or 3,000 rupees, and they say, Array, I'm not going to use this, let me just leave it. The bank will follow up, and then they don't care. The bank may follow up after some time, and they may write it off, because the money they would spend on following up would be more than the 2 or 3,000 that you owe them. But some years later, that will come to haunt you back. When someone is checking your eligibility for a higher education loan or for a home loan, and they see that long back you had something and it's still showing up negatively. So even if it's a small amount, and sometimes the individual may feel, Array, I repaid, but still they put a small thing. It's good to be aware of what is being charged on your card, and if you feel that it is unfair, or it's a charge that shouldn't have been on your card, you should approach the bank immediately and get it sorted, instead of saying, no, anyway it's unfair, so why should I pay, I'll just leave it. It will come back to haunt you eventually. So clear off all your dues. And having multiple credit lines is another problem, because banks are behind you. Once you're earning a good salary, working in a good company, they will obviously approach you for cards, and everybody. So then the people will think, okay, let me get credit cards or 5 credit cards, and they may use them all. They say, I'm eligible, why not? But if you have multiple credit cards, CIBIL looks at you as someone who's too much on debt. You're using too many cards. That means you're risky. You may just use up all the credit limits on the cards, and you may vanish, or you may not repay. So having too many cards is a problem. Also, using up the entire limit on your card every month is again a problem. If you have, say, a 2 lakh limit and every month you're swiping for 2 lakhs, that also reflects poorly on CIBIL. So have a, and if you have too many unsecured loans, you have 2, 3 personal loans, 3, 4 credit cards, those are all unsecured loans, which are considered as a risk factor. So having a secured loan, like a home loan or a car loan, builds up good credit scores.
Okay.
And some years back, I remember when I wanted to apply for a Schengen visa, they asked me for my IT returns as well. And so having your IT returns in order is also
key.
important.
Okay.
Yeah.
These days, if you see, right, you go to any electronic shop or anything, you just end up impulse buying is becoming very common, isn't it? You go for a TV, but you end up buying speakers and sound bars and theater and all of that. So there you have an EMI option that is available. You can zero down payment, you can get the entire world, and you can go home. So there the CIBIL score plays a role, isn't it? So how do you actually correct if you have actually made a mistake, if you've not paid a due or anything, and it reflects in your CIBIL score? Is there a chance that you can rectify that to get that better?
Yes, you can always improve your score by rectifying your credit behavior. If so, it's a good idea to occasionally check your credit score, and many of them offer it free. The banks will let you download it for free. So if there are some anomalies, then reaching out to CIBIL or to the bank to get it rectified is a good idea. So and another thing is having no loan whatsoever is
That is
also,
also a problem. Yeah.
okay. So people, when they say, I never want to take any loan whatsoever, and suddenly at some point of time you want to approach a bank for a home loan, they will say there's no credit history of yours, how can we give you? So don't be averse to getting a loan. At the same time, don't fall for the EMI trap as well, because it seems like a convenient thing to have. I don't have to pay the entire thing upfront, and then there are 0% interest EMIs as well. Some of them will only charge you the GST. So then sometimes these EMI schemes tempt you, but then you see the GST is being charged on your account, and you would feel, I had the money for the phone. I thought it will be nice to pay it in monthly installments, but I'm unnecessarily paying the GST amount. So it is a pure marketing thing, right? When they promote these EMI schemes, you have to first thoroughly analyze whether you
Right.
need that product.
The offer seems very convincing and exciting.
Oh yeah,
So
and don't go for this up to 50% off, 75% off, and my sisters for that. For example, they say, "Hey Sandeep, let's go to this mall. They are offering 50% off on these clothes, and this brand is offering so much percent." And like, I don't. Anytime I don't fall for these offers, because there are retailers that have 50% or 70% discount throughout the year.
right.
If they can offer 70% discount throughout the year, might as well offer it at that 30% rate, no? It's just to make you believe that you're getting things much cheaper than they actually are. There are no free lunches. Nobody is doing anybody a favor here. They're only trying to play into your emotions and get you to buy.
True. But how do you actually rectify that, coming back to the CIBIL score, right? So is there a way that you get another loan and repay it properly so that it gets rectified, or how does that work?
Yeah, first see if there are any outstandings that you haven't paid up. If there is a small outstanding, 2,500, 600 that is remaining, paid up, so that will get cleared. So that itself does a lot. And then don't take a loan just for the sake of improving your
CIBIL.
CIBIL. But if there is a need, do take a secured loan, like something that is backed by a security, and ensure that you're always repaying. Not even one day. Sometimes even one day. There was a time when I used to only put the amount of EMI in that account. I used to fund that account only to that amount. But once the interest rate changed, and then instead of keeping the EMI same and adjusting the tenure, the bank changed the EMI by a couple of hundreds, and then it became insufficient funds in the account.
Right.
So that's the other mistake I made once, which I advise viewers not to do. Always, if you're having an account and the EMI is going out of the account and you're using that account only for this EMI repayment, keep it a little extra funded. You never know, because unintentionally you just become,
Right.
there's a default over there.
Got it.
So yeah, re, uh, if and when you get the next loan, repay it on time, enough sufficient funds, and try and get. I mean, if you want to buy a car and if you have the money, still get a car loan, right? And because it's backed by that security, and then you repay, and then it improves your credit history. And then, yeah, keeping the number of credit cards in check, having one at most two is a good idea. Repaying them, and don't use 100% of your limit. Keep it to less than 50%. Automatically, your credit scores will improve.
So, moving on, what is the one big mistake, money mistake, that the millennials are making?
I come across quite a few of them living really lavish, luxurious lives, and I wish good for them. I'm happy that they're enjoying lives. But when it comes to crucial things like health insurance or investing for their future, they say they don't have money for it. I'm aghast when people say they do not have the 15 or 20,000 rupees as a annual premium for their health insurance, but they're more than willing to spend 5k or 10k on a dinner outing. Okay, it's important or needed, right, to enjoy your life, but I find it strange when they say, hey, not this month, maybe after 2 or 3 months. And I know there was a gentleman recently who had a baby a few months back, and when his family health insurance was up for renewal, he didn't add his baby. He's saying it's okay, let me add the baby in the policy next year. Why spend a couple of thousands extra? And I'm very surprised when they're not prioritizing the security aspect, the financial security aspect. It's not that the gentleman is not spending otherwise. He is spending on a lot of discretionary things, right? Traveling, eating out, and all those things. So that is the mistake I see quite often. I know people who have high incomes, uh, leading very comfortable lives based on that income, having a home loan and sending their kids to very costly schools, but have no term insurance. And they say, I had one of my friends tell me, why should, for term insurance, which actually pays a lump sum if the breadwinner passes away during the policy of the term. He said, why should I struggle and pay premiums all my life for others to enjoy if I die?
Wow.
Okay, that was the statement that he made. So it was, I mean, obviously he was ignoring the fact that it would be his own spouse and child. And it's not about enjoying, it's about being able to continue the same lifestyle and repay all your obligations if the earning member unfortunately were to pass away. So this is the attitude sometimes that is a bit disappointing to hear. No money for investing. You're earning 2-3 lakhs, and then you say you don't have 10,000 or 20,000 to invest in an SIP. That is, priority has gone wrong. And I have a friend who would argue that yes, I have my priorities. My priorities are to enjoy. My priorities are to go out on holidays. This is not my priority. Then what do you say? Priorities are different.
Different, right?
But God forbid if there was a financial difficulty, and then you may regret not having the right priorities early age. So um, prioritize happiness, luxuries, but make sure you also prioritize your financial health. That's also important.
Absolutely. So, while talking about millennials and all that, right? So, some buzzword that is going around is cryptocurrency. What is it? How do you see it, going high in the future?
See, personally, I've not been a big fan of cryptocurrency because uh, most of the cryptocurrencies out there do not have any underlying asset. When you talk about, we call fiat currencies the money that we all spend, right? Which, so there's an underlying asset, like our Indian currency, for example. It's based on the gold reserves. So you can't have money just coming out of thin air and then people just buying. Suddenly, I can say I'm launching a token and this is worth 100 rupees, and you feel, okay, let me pay 110, and somebody else pays 120, and then it has to have an underlying asset, which it doesn't. um, so I haven't invested in cryptos. I have not advised people to invest in them. There's also the you can't use it so much as a medium of exchange to purchase things, right? So because it's very volatile, if you have to use uh, 1 unit of cryptocurrency to buy a loaf of bread, suddenly within seconds the value is
Yeah,
changing, so
fluctuating.
fluctuating, so at what value, so it doesn't serve that use case as well. And there are lots of scams, and there are companies shutting down left and right. But the technology that they use, blockchain technology, has been known to be very futuristic. Many banks are, many fintechs and banks are adopting blockchain. Governments themselves are trying to come up with digital currencies and all that. So, I, if you ask me, the technology behind crypto will stay, but crypto itself will not be very popular going forward.
Okay, all right. Secret investment strategy that the wealthy use.
Okay.
We'll ask that. So, so could you tell us what could be one secret investment strategy that the so-called wealthy people use?
It's no more a secret, actually. Probably it was before the advent of social media and the internet. But now we know that having an abundance mindset rather than a saving or a restricted mindset can actually help you generate more wealth. And there was a time when I was uh, making a spreadsheet where every single expense of mine, every day, I used to write it down and put it into categories and keep talking about, okay, it's the 5th of the month and I've already spent so much. It's the 10th and I already spent so much. I have to keep it within a budget. And so subconsciously, what I was doing was looking at expenses, talking more about expenses, thinking more about expenses, and then trying to cut my expenses. At one point, I decided that that's the wrong approach. My mind and energy and focus should be on generating income rather than cutting expenses. Okay, so what the wealthy do, I've read a few books and watched a few videos, is if if there is something that an activity that they can outsource to someone else, pay them some money, and use their time to actually indulge in income generating work, they would do that. And I was like fussing about the small things, arguing with someone for a 10 rupee difference or something. So when you spend more time on trying to reduce and save and have that kind of mindset.
So, penny wise, pound foolish?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. So most of the people who have a lot of wealth, who make a lot of money, they have an abundance mindset. They think on and work towards activities to generate more wealth and more income, rather than just spending all their energies in cutting costs.
Okay, interesting.
There's a book, called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. There's a lot of concepts they discuss in that, and one of them is this: you invest in businesses. You invest in income generating stuff. And so they have these, there's a father who's very educated, knowledgeable, but he's always, you know, leading a very mediocre life. And then there's the other father who's very rich because his approach, his mindset was totally different.
Amazing. So I got a question, I lost it. Budget, yeah, yeah. So when you say, you had told that, than cutting down expenses, I'll have to look at how to generate income. So are you telling that, budgeting and going by the budget is not the thing?
No, you need to have a ballpark figure, okay? Um, what I'm saying is, do not fuss about uh, everything that you are spending on. I was spending a lot of time and energy on looking and about expenses, and the more I spoke about expenses, the more I was attracting expenses. So now I let it aside. I know that, okay, approximately X amount is my monthly expense. So let me not fuss about every small thing. Let me focus on activities that would generate income for me. And reading is one of those activities that would indirectly generate income. Because if I read about new investment avenues, new markets, new potentials, I can transfer that knowledge to my investors. And when I transfer that knowledge, automatically they're more drawn to me and they want to invest more through me. And as we speak, yesterday there was an investor from the United States who had invested some money a couple of months back, and now it's down 10%. But you know, regularly sending them updates, telling them why it's a good idea to invest when the markets are actually down. And that's the other thing that people do, right? The mistake, when markets are going down, they panic, they stop their SIPs, they withdraw, uh, and then who laughs the way to the bank? It's the ones who invest. It's simple, you know. If you invested 2 months back at a particular rate, let's say you invested 1 lakh, and now it is 90,000. Instead of looking at it as, oh my God, my investments have gone down 10%, look at it like, wow, now prices are 10% cheaper. Okay, so that's how it is. During COVID, I did pump in a lot of money every time the markets were correcting. And within a year, it was 100% up. So you never know how quickly the markets will shoot up. So uh, stay invested when for a long term, and keep adding some more money whenever there are market corrections. That's my philosophy. So to answer your question, budgeting is not wrong. You need to know how much, you need to have a control of what you spend as well. At the same time, don't keep fussing over every little expense. Focus your energies on activities that would eventually contribute to your wealth generation.
And expense as well.
So I speak to clients. Uh, there are times when I'm driving for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. I listen to content on building an abundance mindset, how to attract wealth, what learning more, upskilling yourself. Spending more time on that will automatically bring you wealth, and obviously having a side hustle, a second income generating. So I don't fuss about the expenses anymore. I know when I focus on income and wealth, I attract more of that.
Correct. So, way back then, right, investment was buying a home or something, or anything of that sort, was save, 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 and then go and buy. Why do you think that there is sudden shift and sudden awareness? Of course, social media is one culprit or advantage or disadvantage or whatever you can call it, right? Social media is one medium where people actually know that this is a place to invest and all of that. But why do you think there is such a shift in mindset about investments of late?
I think a generational shift of priorities as well. So my parents' generation, they weren't too ambitious. Okay. And especially those who were working in government organizations and public sector, they would lead very for the sake of choosing a politically correct word, a moderately ambitious life. And when they retire, they would get a lump sum in which they may buy a house, or they may, they after 60 is when they actually see a lot of money. Today's generation, they want to see it faster. It's instant gratification that they want. They want to be able to, buy a house in their late 20s or mid 30s. They want to travel the world when they are young. They don't. I remember my parents, the first time they stepped out of India was, when my father was already retired and my mother was just about to retire. That's the first time they went on a foreign trip, and they had the ambition. I mean, they had it in their mind that they would love to visit foreign countries, but they couldn't afford it. Today's generation is totally different.
You have an EMI for that as well these days.
Yeah, I have EMI for everything. But times have changed, and you want to achieve everything faster.
Right.
And I don't blame that, because I would, in my 30s, I built my own house, and that's something that I feel proud about. And I was in a public sector job earlier, which in the problem with jobs in the public sector is that your basic pay or your in-hand cash component is small, and there are multiple reimbursements which totally add up. Let's say, I'll give you just a random figure. If you were to earn a gross of 1 lakh, you would get only 25 to 30,000 as your cash component, and the rest of them would be reimbursements. When you want to buy a house, your eligibility for a home loan will be based on that 30,000 of cash thing. They don't consider reimbursements. So I wasn't eligible for a very big loan. At best, I was eligible for a loan of 30 lakhs or 35 lakh, and I couldn't have gotten anything great in that kind of a budget. But when I switched to a private job, 90% of it or 95% of it was cash. Okay, so there were reimbursements were negligible. So then I was eligible for a higher loan.
Right.
So I could buy that house at a much younger age than I would have if I was in the public sector role. So now, yeah, earlier a lot of public sector and government roles were the go-to jobs,
Right.
and now people who are in private sector are making a lot more money and at a lot younger age.
Recession is another nightmare.
Yeah, we are seeing that kind of right now as well.
Yeah. So how can people actually have a recession-proof financial decision or financial investment?
Yeah, as I mentioned a little earlier in our conversation, it's important to have an exigency fund to be able to dip into at all times. And I come across individuals who say that, their life depends on the next paycheck. So if they weren't going to receive their salary on the first of the next month, they cannot run their family for the next month. So they're living on the edge. So it's important to build your exigency fund first, set aside in a fixed deposit, don't touch it at any cost. Okay, and having insurance in place again is very important, because if you were to lose a job and you're not insured, I know a friend who was in a job who depended only on his company's health insurance, and he got another job, but there was a 1 month gap between the two jobs, and then he was admitted, and then there was no personal health insurance, and he had to cough up a lot of money.
Hard luck.
So during recession, imagine that happens if you were to be made redundant, and you don't have health cover, you'll be in deep trouble. So having a health cover or a car motor insurance is equally important, and having a second income source, which you can rely on. Everybody has some of the other talents or passions. Maybe some are good at teaching, and now with all the online teaching available, the online methods, you can uh, cater to a large audience from sitting in one place. So if you have a passion, pursue it by all means. At least I know a gentleman who works in a bank, and he takes classes every evening for those who want to get into banking careers. And initially, he says, I just started it for free. I just did 2 or 3 batches for free, and I just wanted to gain the experience and learn. And then once he realized he's doing very well, he started charging. And now people spread the good word. I mean, through word of mouth, he gets at least 10 to 15 students every month. And each of them pay about 30K, 35K. So that's an additional 3 to 4 lakhs a month, along with his regular income, and he spends 1 hour in the evening for 5 days in a week or so. And that's a good secondary source of income to have.
Right.
So, yeah, the teaching is one example. If you're good at singing, you could teach your kids or something.
Right.
And you can do investment advice, and there are a lot of freelancing platforms as well online where you can trade your skills. So yeah, to repeat, to cut it short, exigency fund to save yourself from a job loss or something, keeping yourself sufficiently insured, and having a secondary source of income would be a great way to recession-proof your financial life.
Amazing. So I think that's a bundle of information, right? And to wrap up, how is AI technology helping people for financial investments?
AI has really changed the way the world functions, in fact, and those who don't adapt to AI are falling behind in the race. Um, eh, Already, many financial institutions use AI to detect fraud, to prevent fraud, for credit decisions. For individuals, AI could, you know, help in delivering customized financial advice. Maybe robotic process automation could, yeah, I'm sure it already does to an extent, do the investment decisions for you when you just trust the machine to do the investments. and and obviously, companies are using AI and machine learning uh, to understand your pattern of spending, where you're spending, what your interests are. And they say Google knows more about us than we know about ourselves, and we're being watched and listened to everywhere. So at the same time, we must ensure AI continues to be responsible and ethical. um, it's a thin line, and many companies are trying their level best to come up with the responsible AI practices. um, from the user's perspective nowadays, I use ChatGPT a lot, and there are financial terms that ChatGPT can explain to you in very simple language, and eventually financial advisors would
Right.
kind of go out of business. But people still prefer a human interaction. Even anchors these days are AI generated
Right.
anchors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Absolutely.
uh, uh, calculations also, even buy versus rent kind of calculation. If you give the right context to ChatGPT, saying this is your goal, this is how much you are spending on EMIs, this is the property where you give the right information, it neatly generates the assessment for you. So using Gen AI tools, you can do a lot of work that hitherto was being done only by individuals. But at the end of the day, machines will not be able to replace humans. They may replace some of the work that we do, but they won't replace humans. And
Absolutely. That's a punching finish. Moving on to the rapid fire, right? I will ask you a couple of questions. Choose either or. Saving or spending?
saving,
Cash or card?
card always,
Budget, yes or no?
yes, but don't get too deep into it.
Stocks or bonds?
Stocks,
Rent or buy?
mostly rent.
Credit score, know it or not?
Know it.
Piggy bank or savings account?
Savings account.
Pack lunch or eat out?
Pack lunch.
A new car or a used car?
Personally, my preference for a new car, because the happiness you get getting into a new car, nothing can beat that.
Pay bills early or last minute?
Last minute, because the longer it stays in your account, it earns you something. So always time your payment just a day or two before the due date.
That's amazing. I think that was definitely a wonderful, informative conversation that we've had.
I enjoyed as well because I love talking about personal finance, and I don't need an excuse to speak about it. So it was great. It was lovely being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Sandeep.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Thanks.